Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 1-0 podcast. I'm Avery Hill.
I'm Lyle Allenstein.
I'm Will Horseman.
Saturday, Penn State lost in the whiteout game to Oregon, 30-24. We're really going to touch on that for the most part, and then we're going to transition to UCLA. Again, Penn State lost in the whiteout game to Oregon. Guys, what was your biggest takeaway from the game? Is it panic time for Penn State?
Yeah, the short answer is no, it's not panic time just yet. Obviously, 12-team playoff, one loss isn't going to completely eliminate any realistic chance at a national title. Penn State still, while the loss is not obviously not what you'd want if you're a fan, but still it's shot at the Big Ten title, still a shot at making the playoffs and making the national championship game and playing for a title. But though, it's kind of losing to Oregon kind of continues the trend. Obviously James Franklin, I think we've seen this 20 times with him before. He loses another big game. You think back to 2014, he lost double overtime to Ohio State. We've seen this before, and it's just really wondering if he's ever going to get over the hump, because I used to give him credit in the sense that he'd at least win the games he's favored, because obviously look through all these games against big time opponents, they're always ranked higher. Penn State's always the underdog, or not always, but most of the time. But then last year against SMU and Boise State, they win pretty handedly, and at least I thought that James Franklin can win games if he's favored. Obviously, last week they were favored to beat Oregon. They didn't, and it was not the best performance I would have liked if I was a Penn State fan. But talking about Drew Aller now, I used to believe in Drew Aller that he could someday become and reach the full potential that he has, but I am out on Drew Aller. I just don't believe.
Selling the stock?
I am so sold everything. I am done. I am completely done with Drew Aller. I think back to 2023 West Virginia. I think it was Noah Eagle on the mic. He said it was the second pass Drew Aller had. It was that just strike to Keandre Lambert-Smith down the field. So he finds KLS right down the middle of the field. That was just a beautiful throw. Quite frankly, I still think that's one of his best throws he's thrown at Penn State. But yeah, Noah Eagle, he says oh, welcome to the Drew Aller era. I truly believed that Drew Aller would become one of the best quarterbacks in Penn State history, if not the best. But obviously now I still feel like he has. I don't care that James Franklin seems to say that he took a step. I always think back to the West Virginia game, and he seems the exact same type of quarterback, or he just has not grown from that moment. And I'm just tired of Drew Aller. And you think of it's you want something more out of these big games, but he just completely always is just terrible when he faces an opponent with a pulse, and it's just not going to work anymore. And because you think of the best three quarterbacks in the 21st century for Penn State, which is in no particular order: Michael Robinson, Darryl Clark, and Trace McSorley. All three of those guys were mobile. They just won football games, and that's just not what Drew Aller is. I would not say that he's mobile enough to make a play and really turn the tides with his legs. He does not win football games. Besides when he beats up against unmatched opponents, when he goes against an opponent that's above average, or maybe not above average, but top 10, he just does not make plays to win football games. And that's all I really care about players. That's how I value how good you are as a player, is how well you win. Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters, is how well you win football games. And Drew Aller simply does not win football games. He's not a winner. As soon as he plays a good opponent, he just does not have enough mental fortitude. He has the mental fortitude of a toddler, and as soon as he plays, it's just well, I don't even know what you do if you're Penn State, because obviously they had a kind of a Trace McSorley type QB in Bo Prabula last year, but with the transfer portal and how it happens right before the playoffs, there was no chance that they could have just told Drew to, hey, move on to the NFL, which I think that's really the best thing for Drew Aller. He should have gone to the NFL as soon as he could have, because I think he needs NFL coaching for him to reach his potential. I don't think he's gonna reach that potential under James Franklin. And really, They need a Bo. They need Bo. I think Bo puts them in a better spot because obviously, like, more similar play style to guys like Trace McSorley, Michael Robinson, Darryl Clark, like guys I've mentioned. But it's just like I'm just tired of Drew Aller and him saying the same stuff at the end of the game, like, "Oh, got to flush it and move on." But it's like he keeps on just having basically the exact same performances against these big time opponents.
Yeah, it's a lot to follow up there. Batting second here is a tough spot to be in, but I'm going to do my best. I'll resort back to, is it time to panic on Penn State? No, it is not. James Franklin talked about how Jim Knowles talked about last year at Ohio State. He gave his perspective on that to the team. So they ended that regular season with 2 losses, obviously. First one being to Oregon, and then the second one being to an unranked Michigan team who just wasn't the Michigan team of years past. And Ohio State went on to, not cruise to a national championship, but then that first game against Oregon that they saw in the second round in the Rose Bowl knocked them off. Obviously, this is a long way to go for Penn State. Their next true test is arguably Iowa, just because you've got Northwestern and UCLA obviously coming up on Saturday. That game against Iowa, Penn State is the better team on paper, but you know how it is playing on the road at Kinnick Stadium. You can point back to the infamous Taquan Roberson moment, which we'll touch on Taquan Roberson, believe it or not, in a little bit here. But so I think if you're Penn State, you're not really going to get a true test if all goes according to plan until Ohio State, and then you're looking at 2 losses. And then you've got to play and win out basically from there. Indiana, all of a sudden, is a top 10 team in the country. And we've talked about James Franklin's record against AP top 10 teams, 4-21 right now. You can't put this game on Franklin. If I'm going to be honest. In years past, you can. I think these recent losses, when I say recent, I'm looking at last year, I don't really think you could put the blame on Franklin on these games as much as Penn State fans want to. If you want to look at a scapegoat, more times often than not, it's going to be the head coach, but I really can't put this game on James Franklin. I wrote about this week how he took accountability.
Where did you write about it at?
PSUcollegian.com in the football section. You can go check it out there. But I think he took accountability in a different way than years past. That classic, like, blaming small things, one thing that happens, the whole plane crashes. It wasn't really about that. The quote he used, that was the money quote this weekend, was like when he was asked about, his narrative about not being able to beat the 10 teams. He's like, I understand the narrative, but it's not actually a narrative. It's facts. It's factual. I thought that was good on him. No one running away for it. You can't hide. Maybe he's just sick of it. Maybe it was about time. Maybe he ran out of excuses. So there's that. But, you can put your finger on, which I don't know if you guys could tell based on what Will just said. It is time to panic on Drew Aller if you weren't already panicking before. My thing with Drew is that this game against Oregon, you got the full experience from him. Not being able to play football for 3 quarters, delivering a great pass down the field to Devontae Ross.
I think he has more NIL deals than points scored through 3 quarters, but go ahead.
Yeah, accurate. I think so.
Accurate.
Fact check. Yes.
Yeah. So beautiful pass to Devontae Ross. He went 3 for 3 for 56 yards on that scoring drive that went 4 plays in just under 2 minutes. Game managed his way to tying that game up. Didn't do anything special. Didn't do anything poor. And then game-sealing interception. Penn State's last 3 losses all have been on a game-sealing interception thrown by Drew Aller. And that's just, if you want to be a big-time quarterback, you got to be able to beat the big-time opponents. You got to be able to make the big-time plays. You looked at this game against Oregon, double overtime. Really bad pass. Dylan Thieneman, that Purdue transfer, who's been great for Oregon all year. And Penn State obviously looked him in the portal last year, couldn't get him on board. He made a great play. But that's just also a bad throw by Drew. First play in double overtime. Not the read there. You look back to that Big Ten championship, threw that ball, forced that ball down the field. Dante Manning picked it up. Look back to the Orange Bowl. Tried to dirt it toward Amari Evans. Christian Gray was all over that one. And it's like, the thing with Drew is that if I'm a Penn State fan or an NFL scout, media, whatever, it's that he just doesn't flat out play poorly the whole time. Right? You see the flashes, and that's why people are he reels you back in, which is why it's just so frustrating if I'm a football just involved in the game at all, just to watch him play. It's the whole narrative of like, oh, there's two different camps. The one that thinks he's got all the tools, the intangibles, the pedigree to put it all together with the right coaching. And then there's this guy should never touch a football and is never going to pan out in the NFL level because he's based on what he's done in big games and just because he's a Penn State quarterback, right? Like, if you told me at the beginning of the season that Drew Aller would have been the number 1 overall pick, I would have told you, yeah, I don't doubt you for a second. If you told me he could go in the 4th or the 5th round, I wouldn't doubt you either. The thing with him is that at this point, you could point out not him blowing up in the big moments. I 100% agree. I really just think it's because he's just mentally not strong at all. Walking off, we look at the development of how he handles post-game after all his losses since he became a starter. Ohio State, he was crying. Michigan, he took the blame the whole time, didn't evaluate anything else about that game. That's the time. This is his first year. Last year was the same thing. He was just really critical about himself after Oregon, after Ohio State, Notre Dame. And then you saw it again. We'll hit on it. It's we're going to flush and come back from this. It's how would you evaluate this game? What went wrong is that we didn't win. We as in Penn State, coming from the perspective of Drew Aller, saying that.
Yeah.
You can't, when he was off the field, immediately after the handshakes, there was a camera too close to him. And he said, "Can you get out of my face?" I wasn't in the vicinity of where that camera was at the time. I'm not going to pick a side here, but it's just things like that. You got to be able to move on because the cameras are on him at all times. Everyone's watching his every move. You are, like I talked about, James Franklin talked about, there's quarterbacks and head coaches are similar in that aspect, is that you're going to be hard on yourself and you're going to take the blame. And there's pros and cons of being hard on yourself after a loss, but for him, it's a con because he mentally is just mental fortitude of a toddler, if I want to quote the guy to the left of me here. But it's just, if you want to be an NFL quarterback, you got to be able to move past that. And that's what NFL likes. Unless you got sources, these scouts and GMs and whatnot, you're not going to see that from him until he's on your team. You're not with him on the sidelines, seeing what he goes through, the mental stress that he puts on himself, that hard nature, that pressure. And it's just because Drew is a great interview, right? He says all the right things unless he's blaming himself for a loss. And that's what's going to get overlooked in the pre-draft process. They're going to look at the tools. They're going to look at how he handles himself. Drew Aller's he's got to come back from this if Penn State has a chance. He is honestly what this season is riding on.
Yeah, I think you guys really covered it all, but I think, there's one thing I want to go back to. Talk about narratives. James Franklin with saying it's not a narrative, it's factual. I do want to say, and this is something that somebody else pointed out on Twitter or X that I will say, I don't remember their name, but narrative. A spoken or written account of connected events, a story. So a narrative can be factual. I just wanted to point that out. I think that's something important to think about. But I think let's go back to Drew. I think I agree with everything you guys said. I think the problem with Drew is really the mental aspect. He hasn't gotten it together. And I think, that moment with the photographer, I think that is something that is very important when you talk about from a scout's perspective. If you want to pay this man millions of dollars, he has to understand how to conduct himself in certain moments. Obviously, he has been good in terms of when he gets the chance to sit down in the media, but those quick reactions, those are things that you don't want. Those are things that you can't have as a potential franchise quarterback in the future. And I think that's the biggest problem. I think if you look at Drew in terms of the intangibles and, his size, about 6'5", 230, 240, wherever you want to place him on that scale. He can run. He doesn't run that much, but he can run. I think that he has his ability to escape isn't one of a Josh Allen or nothing like that, but it's enough that helps when you need it. If you need him to, get out on the option run, which is something Lyle touched on with James Franklin on Wednesday, if you get out on the option, he is a guy that you can trust to at least make the right decision in that room. He's not going to break a 50-yard run, a 60-yard run, nothing like that, but he can get you those chunk yards every once in a while. He can, I don't know if you want him carrying the pile, but he does have the size to carry the pile if you need. But it's really the mental side. Again, you're 3 straight games of losses where he's had that, game-sealing pick. It's a lot of overthinking. It's a lot of stuff that everyone has kind of been talking about week by week. It seems like he's, overthinking this thing. It seems like he doesn't really, he panics at the last second. You can even look at some of the throws later in the game or not later in the game, but in, that third quarter-ish area where he is just firing it out there with honestly no awareness of what's going on. Sometimes that's the pressure. I think he was, 48% of the game, he was pressured, which, for reference, the second highest total this season for him was Nevada at 20%. So obviously he had the pressure in his face. The offensive line is something we can touch on a little bit as well. But the reality is Drew has not been playing good football. I think that comes as a shocker to some people because it's like at the end of the year, Drew Allen says he's declaring for the draft, and all of a sudden he starts balling, he starts throwing dots. Obviously, he has to pick in the Notre Dame game, but other than that, he for the most part he was balling. I think Boise State was a game where everyone's like, okay, is he going to enter the draft now at this point? Like he might as well. Like he has the arm talent to do so. That's where it is. But again, the errors keep coming up when it really matters, and then again we can also touch on James Franklin again, like. At some point, like, you got to just feel bad for him with this one because it's not, I wouldn't say it's his fault. Like, I wouldn't say this loss was his fault. I wouldn't say last year Ohio State loss was his fault. I think Oregon, you can toss up last year, the Big Ten Championship, you can toss up. I think my biggest problem for Oregon and for Oregon's game is the game plan. I just don't know why Tez Johnson's getting a free release. I don't know. That's just something I've harped on ever since that game. Notre Dame, I just think at the end of the day, obviously the Drew pick is crucial, but I also think there's a talent factor. I think they were kind of outmatched to a point. I think that Notre Dame was, at the end of the day, the better team, but James Franklin coached a really good game, and that continues to happen. I think James Franklin has crossed off that okay, because the issues with James Franklin initially was, game manager, his ability to make those crucial decisions late in the game, but now he's coaching a good game. I think the only thing that you can blame him for is, the talent that he's bringing or the guys he's bringing in. Again, Andy Kotelnicki, he's a guy that a lot of people were high on when he came here, but as he starts to get in more and more big games, it's like, okay, maybe he's not as good as we thought he was. I mean, I kind of want to get you guys' take on that. I mean, Andy Kotelnicki's got a lot of conversation. Where do you think he stands as an offensive coordinator? Do you think he's doing a good job at all? Do you think that he's, missing in aspects? Do you think he can even get a head coaching job after this year, given the way last year transpired compared to where he's at right now?
I think Andy Kotelnicki after this year is going to be a head coach. I think Andy Kotelnicki is still a good offensive coordinator. The issue is, in terms of evaluating him, if you're a Penn State fan, is the production of this offense right now and seeing. You can start with Drew Aller. Andy Kotelnicki hasn't coached a pocket passer in his entire collegiate offensive coordinating career, and you're seeing that. This guy would have loved Bo. He loved Bo last year, which Will and I did a dueling column on, and I don't believe that Bo was the right play.
But you don't need his reasoning yet. You can go on psucollegian.com. You can click football. You can scroll down. You'll see dueling column, and it'll be right there.
Yeah, I think Andy Kotelnicki, but is still a good offensive coordinator. Unfortunately, just Drew is not the right fit for him. And I think there's other issues with this offense right now outside of Drew. But I'll list them all right now. The run game isn't good. The wide receivers are getting zero separation. That looked especially evident against that looked especially evident against Oregon. That's a young cornerback room the Ducks have. Brandon Finney, who was going to come to Penn State and was apparently getting a lot of criticism on the sideline from the coaching staff every time he was anywhere near the sideline. And he balled out. He played very good.
That man's a dog.
He is a duck.
Yeah.
A duck.
Yeah.
True.
Because a dog would be too close to a lion anyway.
Yeah,
so
that was the vision. I'm kidding.
Right.
Yeah, but the wide receiver got zero separation. Trevor Pena got open a few times that Drew completely missed it. Like, just not missed in terms of throw, just missed the read. Kyron Hudson got boxed. Devontae Ross's numbers are inflated by that 35-yard touchdown. So the wide receivers aren't getting separation. Nick and Katron were non-existent on Saturday. Nick's been non-existent this whole year. Katron has still looked good. I'm not going to hinder what Katron's done this year. And then the offensive line, really bad. That Oregon defensive line. We can criticize Drew all we want, and it's deserved. But he had pressure in his face 48% of the time. That Oregon defensive line is very good, and they feasted on a Penn State offensive line that's arguably supposed to be the best in the country. Avery asked James about this week with 7 starters. TJ Shanahan and Cooper Cousins barely played, and that offensive line got
6 snaps.
Yeah, I think it was 6.
Yeah, 4 from TJ.
They got feasted on.
Two from Coop. And I think one was when Donko went out for literally a 2 plays.
Yeah, so it's just it says something that the lack of confidence in those guys who are supposed to. I still think Cooper Cousins and TJ Shanahan are good football players, but I think that says something based on the performance of this offensive line. As far as Kotelnicki goes, I think he's gone after this year. Drew's gone after this year, so it doesn't really matter. I logged an expert prediction a month ago based with zero intel that Luke Fickell's going to get fired at Wisconsin and Kotelnicki's going to go there. Other coaching jobs are opening up. James Franklin deflected yesterday when he was asked if Kulnicki is the right fit for Drew as a quarterback, because obviously he has to, and he cited last year the offense performed. But, you're not going to get a real feel on this offense over these past couple of weeks, even if those numbers, they look like they're performing. It's weaker defenses. So,
I pretty much agree with what Lyle said, but I'll talk about something else in like these big games that Penn State's been seeing. It's like I feel like almost every time Penn State plays a big time opponent, Penn State's defense or special teams or whatever, they make like a big time play, like the fumble recovery that went like back to the 50-yard line, but ended up getting called back. It feels like that's almost happening like every single time Penn State plays a big time opponent. I mean, I think back a couple of years ago against Ohio State in 2023, I think Curtis Jacobs had a similar fumble recovery.
Yeah, that's a great pull.
It's like obviously I'd say the one like true big win James Franklin has, 2016 Ohio State, obviously block 6. We all know what I'm talking about there. So it's like I feel like Penn State kind of needs like not to say a fluke play, but like a very, very fortunate play. But it just feels like every time it happens for Penn State, it just always gets called back, which it's just so unfortunate for Penn State because they always end up in these like one-score games against these top-tier teams.
Yeah, luck has not been on Penn State's side in that realm again. Like, I'm watching the fumble in the press box, and I'm like, in what way is that not a fumble? I was very confused. The one Twitter clip that I saw, X clip, whatever I'm calling it Twitter, the one clip that I saw that, with his knee, like, did it graze, whatever, that was on, I was like, okay, maybe. But, again, on the field, it was called as a fumble. So that has to stand. That is not conclusive. I thought that was very interesting. Obviously, when you talk about this luck thing, and you can also wrap in collusion to it, because some Penn State fans think that it's some sort of collusion. The holding calls, obviously, but that's football. Denied Dennis Sutton is now getting the Abdul Carter treatment. He's getting held every single play. But, that brings me to the defense. Again, Penn State's defense balled out. Penn State's defense obviously had to play against an up-tempo Oregon offense. We saw this last year where Kobe King throwing up after Kenyon Sadiq made a play. Like, Oregon's offense is very up-tempo. That is exactly why we're like, the game's going by so fast. They're moving very fast. But, how did you guys think Penn State's defense performed? Did you think it was really a shutdown performance, or do you think there's things that Penn State's defense really needs to work on moving forward?
I think it says something that we got this far on the episode and we haven't talked about the defense. Yeah, the defense played great. They got tired. That's all I really can say about it at this point. If you want to point to anything that went wrong, defensive line got 0 sacks. They were able to generate pressure. Dante Moore is great out of the pocket. Rolled out. Zane Durant, Zariah, Deny. They had their chances. They couldn't get to him. I don't think this defense is a concern moving forward. I saw a bunch of the Ohio State Twitter community was ripping into Jim Knowles. You didn't watch the game.
They've been waiting for any moment to jump on Jim Knowles, like literally all summer. Like, they hate that man. I'm like, you won a national championship. Forget the drama. You won a national championship. I'm not getting that. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to say. The defense.
Yeah, you could kind of like nitpick maybe here or there, or it's like say like, oh, this player should have done this, but it's like I don't care. They allowed 17 points in regulation. Penn State's offense with a supposed first-round quarterback and a whole bunch of like highly touted transfer wide receivers and a pair of returning running backs and what was supposed to be the best offensive line at Penn State under James Franklin. They should be able to win any game if their defense holds the other team to 17 points in regulation. That's really all I have to say, because at the end of the day, points is all that matters.
Yeah, and then just to wrap up, one thing for you guys. Again, James Franklin talked about not letting one loss turn into 2, not letting that turn 3, whatever. Do you guys not well, you already asked is a panic mode, but what is kind of that key for Penn State? Is there something particular that you guys think that Penn State needs to focus on to make sure that even if it's not this UCLA game, again, we talked about Iowa, things like that, how does Penn State keep this season, not let it spiral whatsoever?
The key is to beat both UCLA and Northwestern by at least 35.
Will they do that? Did you say they will do that? Oh, don't spoil it. Oh, no. PSUcollegian.com, you can click football, and you'll find out right there.
Yeah, you're going. James Franklin said it's a good time to get out of town. They're getting out of town. They're going so far out of town that they're going to be on the West Coast. It's going to be at the Rose Bowl. We'll be there. It's exciting stuff. But Penn State's going to win this game by if they go so to plan for them by lots of points, whether they look like they're a top team in the country or it's just a gritty, grinded out game. And that's what they've got to do the next 2 weeks.
I mean, UCLA, Northwestern, I don't think either team is good enough to really be a true trap game. But really, that next stretch of Iowa, Ohio State, and Indiana, Penn State's got to be kind of careful there because, I mean, obviously Iowa, kind of a bit of a trap game, and then obviously 2 top 10 teams. If they're not careful, they're 8-4 playing in the Citrus Bowl in Orlando in January, and a very possible opponent would be Bo Prabila and Missouri.
Whoa,
so
they might make the playoffs, and it won't be Old Dominion. We'll say that, but
sure, maybe they will, maybe not, but I don't know. Hey, I mean, Orlando, pretty nice weather in January, so not. I suppose it's not the worst destination.
Yeah, I'm with what y'all said. I think now, especially this slate of, obviously you got these 2 weeks. Get past that, whatever. Iowa, Ohio State, Indiana. That is a huge slate now. Nobody really thought Indiana would be where they are right now, even though I will say they lost by 13 points to Old Dominion. Yep, Google me. But they did lose by like 13 points to Old Dominion. I will mention that Old Dominion is a playoff team, but that is a very important stretch, but they must start out on the roll. Again, I would say what I have for the game, but you can check that at psucollegian.com. But, yeah, they've got to roll through these next 2 teams and make a statement. Well, that's all we have for today. For more coverage, visit us at psucollegian.com and follow us on socials. Also, subscribe to our newsletter to have content curated right to your inbox every Friday and every Monday. Other than that, we'll be headed to LA, and we will see you next time.